What's up guys, Andrew here, and welcome back to another MLS Team of the Season based off stats video. With the Seattle Sounders recently wrapping up their first MLS Cup title, I decided to take a look at the best players from this season based off of how they performed statistically. Now I've done this video once already, so I'm not going to go through how I analyze all these stats, but if you want, you can take a look at my last video. So without wasting any time, let's jump right into the team. Alright, so starting off in goal, we have Brian Rowe from Los Angeles. While he wasn't nominated for any Goalkeeper of the Year awards or anything like that, Rowe had a solid, consistent year in goal for LA. It was one of the reasons they were able to make it into the playoffs this year. The important stats we focused on were distribution percentage, because it's important as a goalkeeper to take the ball from your hands and be able to give it to your own team without giving the ball away. Goals against average, because as a goalkeeper you clearly want to give up as few goals as possible, and save percentage for that exact same reason. Out of all of our goalkeeper finalists, he made the most saves with the best save percentage, had the second least goals allowed and the second best goals against average, while also posting the third most shutouts. At left back we have Mark Birch from Colorado. One of the major reasons the playoff teams in MLS did so well this year and made it to the playoffs was because they had overlapping outside backs who were able to add dynamic into their attack. It's super important to have players who can go forward and aid in your attack and also defend well. The important stats that we're focused on for this position and the right back position were completed dribbles, because it's important as an outside back that you can take your defender on one-on-one and still beat him. Crosses completed, because once you get past your player you want to be able to cross the ball into the box. And tackle success rate, because as a left back you're a back, defending first. You want to make sure you can tackle people without letting them get by you, and that's what that stat tells us. Birch had the fourth best tackle success rate, made the second most clearances, was dispossessed the least number of times, and completed the third most crosses of all left back finalists this year. At right back we have Tyrone Mears from Seattle, another attacking outside back who helped his team get far into the playoffs this year. In this case, he helped his team win the playoffs this year. Mears had the best tackle success rate, made the second most clearances, and completed the most passes and crosses of any right back finalist this year. Now moving on to the center of our defense, we have Drew Moore from Toronto. The rock at the back of Toronto's defense this year, he helped them get to their first MLS Cup final. Just like last time, the stress stats are interceptions, headers won, and tackle success rate. Moore had the fourth most interceptions, the best passing percentage out of the back, and won the third most offsides call out of all of the center back finalists this year. Next to him we have Jonathan Campbell, and I know it's strange to think that a player from a team with the worst goal differential, who finished at the bottom of the entire MLS this year, could be in our best 11. But not only was he one of the best players on his team this year, he was also by far the best defender that Chicago had this year. He had the best tackle success rate, was ranked second in least cards and fouls, blocked the third most shots, and won the sixth most offsides out of any center back in our finalist column this year. Now moving into the midfield at CDM, where we have none other than Ozzy Alonso, the rock of midfield for Seattle. He was one of the major reasons that they were able to go so far this year, and that they were able to keep their heads afloat. While they were having trouble scoring in the beginning of the year, he was the reason that they were able to pick up a point here and a point there, because he locked it down in the midfield. Interceptions and tackle success rate were still stress stats for the CDM position this year, but another one that we added was time dispossessed. Time after time watching MLS games this year, I saw center defensive mids lose the ball and get countered and have their team get scored on because they were too careless with the ball. So we're analyzing that stat to see who gives it away the least. Alonso had the best tackle success rate, made the second most interceptions, and had the best passing percentage of all of our CDM finalists this year. At center attacking mid, we have the stash, Sacha Kljestan from the New York Red Bulls. The league leader in assists this year with 20, was an MLS MVP finalist, and really should have won over David Villa. Kljestan was a major reason that the Red Bulls were able to turn around their dismal 1-6 start. The stress stats were passing percentage, because when you're going forward in the attacking third, you don't want to give away possession with a bad pass. Assist, because the major role of your number 10 is to assist your forward. And key passes, because sometimes you give a ball that's definitely worthy of an assist, but your forward just misses the goal. But as was proven by BWP and Kljestan this year, if you keep giving him the ball, he's going to score eventually. He had the most key passes, most assists, while also ranking 4th in goals scored for center attacking mid finalists this year, which capped off a great year for the Red Bull center attacking mid. Now on to the wingers, guys, where at left mid we have Justin Meram from Columbus, another player from a team who had a relatively bad 2016 campaign. Meram was by far one of the best players on Columbus this year. After Kai Kamara was traded, Meram picked up the bulk of the attacking work with Ola Kamara, notching 5 goals and 10 assists in a campaign that was extremely strange for Columbus, going from the best team in the East last year to second worst this year. The stressed stats stay the same, focusing on times dispossessed, number of fouls drawn, and number of successful dribbles. Meram made the most tackles, drew the second most fouls, took the second most shots, completed the most dribbles, and the second most crosses, also finishing first in assists for all left mid finalists this year. At right mid, we have Lloyd Sam. The ex-Red Bull had a solid season for DCU, helping them turn their season around from resting near the bottom of the Eastern Conference and getting him into playoff position towards the end of the year. Sam was the least dribbled by player defensively, while drawing the 4th most fouls, completing the most crosses, and getting the 2nd most assists of all right mid finalists this year. And finally, we have our strikers. Once again, the strikers were analyzed as a whole with an overlaying group of stats, then separated out into their finalists and analyzed on criteria for run behind and target forwards. For our run behind forward, we have none other than the other half of the deadliest attacking duo in the MLS this year, Bradley WrightPhillips. Another MLS MVP finalist and another player who deserved it more than Villa. BWP won the Golden Boot race with 24 goals this year. That gave him 68 over a 3-year span, making him the most prolific goal scorer over a 3-year span in MLS history. He was another reason that the Rebels were able to turn around that terrible start and finish at the top of the Eastern Conference this year. The stress stats were dribbles completed, because as a run behind forward, a lot of times you're going to have to create your own space to get your shot off. Number of time offsides, because nothing is worse than when you have a great attack going forward and then the flag goes up to call somebody offside. And finally, goal conversion rate. For obvious reasons. You want a striker who can score a lot of goals on the fewest number of shots, so you know that he is prolific. BWP took the 3rd most shots, scoring the most goals, giving him the 4th highest goal conversion rate, while also completing the 3rd most dribbles of any of the strikers this year. And finally, to round out our starting 11, we have our target forward Chris Wondolowski. And while I'll always have a special place of hatred for him after that Belgium-USA World Cup game in 2014, in the MLS he is usually a consistently good striker. And this year was no different. Playing for San Jose, another non-playoff team, we saw him have a very good season, putting up consistent numbers, and for a long time he was in the Golden Boot race with the likes of Giovinco, BWP, and David Villa. The stress stats for target forward have changed a little bit. We still focus on passing percentage, but only short passing percentage, because a lot of the times you're not looking to make a full field switch as a target forward. You're usually just looking to lay it off to somebody running off of you. Then we looked at the number of unsuccessful touches or bad first touches a player has. As a target forward, it's super important to have a good first touch when you're holding the ball up, because if you take a bad touch, you're going to have it intercepted, and the other team is going to counter you and score on you. And we also looked at times dispossessed for the same reason. You don't want to be holding off somebody, lose the ball, and then get countered. Wando was dispossessed the least amount of times, had the 4th least bad first touches, and had the 3rd best short passing percentage of all of the other finalist forwards in the league this year. And now we move on to the bench for the players who had a great season but just didn't quite make it. In goal, we have Luis Robles. While he started off slow, he picked it up the second half of the year and finished 2nd in the Goalkeeper of the Year voting. Robles had the 4th best distribution percentage, made the 4th most saves with the 3rd best save percentage, had the 5th best goals against average, and posted the most shutouts of all the goalkeepers this year in the league. The backup center back for the team is Chad Marshall from Seattle. Another solid reason why they were able to keep their heads above water at the beginning of the season when they couldn't score goals was because him and Ozzy Alonso locked it down in the back. He made the most interceptions with the 3rd least fouls and 3rd least cards, ranked 4th in clearances and block shots, won the 3rd most headers, and had the 5th best passing percentage of all of the finalist center backs this year. The backup right back for the team is Keegan Rosenberry. The Rookie of the Year finalist had a phenomenal year for Philadelphia, and with fellow center back rookie Josh Yarrow, it looks like Philadelphia's defense is set for the years to come. Rosenberry made the most tackles and most interceptions, committed the least fouls, and made the most clearances, while also completing the 3rd most crosses of all of the right back finalists this year. The backup left back is Justin Morrow from Toronto. Again, another attacking outside back from a playoff team that went very far. I think we're starting to see a pattern here. Morrow made the most tackles, the 3rd most interceptions, committed the least number of fouls, blocked the 2nd most crosses, completed the 2nd most passes, and completed the 5th most crosses of all of the left back finalists this year. The backup center defensive mid is Wil Trapp from Columbus. A player who's on the fringe at the USMNT, and with new coach Bruce Arena, he's probably going to get his chance, and rightfully so. Trapp was the least dispossessed player, had the 3rd highest passing percentage, and made the 8th most interceptions of all of the finalists in the CDM category this year. The backup center attacking mid is Andrea Pirlo from New York City. While Pirlo is the definition of a defensive liability, he's always been known for what he can do attacking and passing the ball. He completed the most passes with the 4th highest passing percentage, had the 2nd most assists, and was the 3rd least dispossessed player in the center attacking mid position this year. The left mid backup for this team is Patrick Nyarko from DCU. He made the 2nd most tackles, the 3rd most interceptions, and drew the most fouls, while also committing the least number of fouls. He completed the 4th most dribbles and the 3rd most crosses, and was the 4th least dispossessed player of all of the left mid finalists this year. The backup right mid is Juan Manuel Burrito Martinez. The ex-RSL man blew up the league with his phenomenal foot skills, making the other defenders look silly as he took the lead by storm. He made the most tackles, drew the most fouls, and completed the most dribbles. He also took the 2nd most shots and scored the 2nd most goals of all right mid finalists this year. The backup target forward for this team is Jordan Morris from Seattle. The Rookie of the Year winner was able to take the offensive responsibilities of both Obafemi Martins and later on in the season Clint Dempsey and fulfill everything that Seattle needed him to do late in the year. Morris had the best short passing percentage, the least bad first touches, and was the 3rd least dispossessed player of all of the forward finalists this year. The backup run behind forward is Sebastian Giovinco from Toronto, an MLS MVP snub who also deserved the award more than Villa, helped lead Toronto to their first ever MLS Cup and produced very impressive numbers with a lot less games than other forwards had. Gio was the most fouled player who took the most shots and scored the 3rd most goals in the league, while also completing the most dribbles of any of the other forward finalists this year. And finally, with 2 more spots, I figured I'd mix it up a little bit. I analyzed certain players that didn't fit quite right into the team, who had a lot of starts in a lot of different positions, but not so many in one position where they could be labeled a right mid, a left mid, a striker. And then I also analyzed those super subs, the players who come off the bench and make instant impacts for their team when they're needed most. The misfit player for this team was Ignacio Piatti. Piatti from Montreal played in 4 different positions, starting at least 5 times in each position. So he was slotted into the misfit player's position, where the stress stats were stressed so that any player could fulfill them and be a good player. We stressed key passes and times dispossessed for when you're playing in the midfield, and number of goals scored for when you're playing on the wings or going forward. Piatti was the most fouled, took the most shots, scored the most goals, completed the most dribbles, made the most key passes, and had the 4th best passing percentage of all of the misfit players, which included the likes of Gio dos Santos, Darlington Nagbe, Boniek Garcia, and Nico Lodeiro. And finally, the super sub, and that label goes to Philadelphia winger Roland Albert. To be a super sub, you needed to have at least 10 substitute appearances and have more substitute appearances than starts. The stress stats were the same as those for misfit players, but for a little bit different reasons. Key passes, because sometimes when you come in, you don't have to be the guy to score the goal. You need to be the one who sets the player up. Times dispossessed, because there's nothing more demoralizing than when a substitute comes in and breaks down an attack because he just isn't brought up to speed yet. And finally, goals, because you're a super sub. You're meant to score goals. Albert drew the 4th most fouls, scored the 3rd most goals, and was the 3rd least dispossessed player of all of the super subs, which included the likes of Mauro Rosales, Fabian Herbers, Chad Barrett, and Julio Baptista. But yeah, that's it, guys, for this second coming of the MLS Team of the Season based off of stats, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and like the video. If you're new around here and want to see more stuff like this, subscribe. Let me know down in the comments if you guys want me to do other leagues. I'll definitely be doing the EPL later on after their season finishes. But yeah, until then, I'll see you guys next time. Be good.